Hello everyone, Johnny Man here. Sorry that I'm slightly later, but I had an issue with OBS, but luckily now it seems to be working properly. Today we are continuing to learn Japanese with Kirby's Adventure, but before starting to play the game itself, we'll continue with the story intro. Since we haven't seen more kanji, we can do that. So let's open it. We were at this point last time. Well, the previous time when we started the story intro. It simply mentions so far that an incident happened, then proceeded with explaining the status quo before the incident, and now we have to see what actually happened. Okay. As usual, the title is simply at the top is simply the title of the game, but funny enough, it also works as literally since it literally is the story, the tale of the Fountain of Dreams, and then of course also Kirby of the Stars at the very start, but that's simply the title of Kirby games in general. Being the story slash tale slash whatever you want with similar meanings, it also works for literally the story of the game, which is what we are seeing. Okay, sorry. So we can start reading the first sentence. しかし、ある日突然 Sorry, pressed the button. しかし、ある日突然、人々は夢を見ることができなくなってしまいました。There's technically not no full stop, but it's implied. The sentence ends there. So we start with しかし, which means however. As usual, we'll check also the accent. But this one is the real however. Again, just like demo we've seen before, it's conjunctions that stays at the start of a sentence in reference to what has been said before. So, however, after saying all that before, which was how things used to be before the incident. And yeah, this one is technically the true however, but because as we have seen before, demo instead has the same meaning, but technically comes from the the form of the copula, and mo. So even though, well, this one is however, but of course their meaning is similar, so you can find either. Shikashi, let's check. Okay, accented on the ka. And as a reminder, the first E is between unvoiced consonants, and so is barely heard if at all. Same applies to in the same conditions. Technically, you could also say the other E because it's at the end of the word, and there's technical, and there can be a pause in this case. And so, since it's preceded by an unvoiced consonant, could be barely heard if at all, but not necessarily, while the one inside the word itself, that in standard Japanese regularly happens. So, shikashi could be shikashi, but more often than not, shikashi. It's the first one that, and could also be why it's accented on the ka, because while some can keep the accent on syllables that are barely, where the vowel is barely heard, if at all, more often than not, people move the accent to the preceding or the following syllable, usually preceding, but of course in this case it's it would be the first one, and so can go further earlier, further before, and so goes after. Just as a reminder and further explanation of some concepts we've seen before. So, however, aru hi, technically we have aru, which usually we have seen aru as the verb to be, to exist, in the sense to exist. As a reminder, there's also iru, which is aru is used for objects, inanimate objects, while iru, unaccented, for animate ones, so people and animals. But in this case, it's if it were written in kanji, it would be written with a different one, although more often than not is usually written using kana alone anyway. And the meaning is a certain, something. It precedes a noun and gives this meaning. Although I wouldn't be surprised if the original meaning were literally something, a certain something that exists, and so that it's actually from the same aru as the verb, but they're technically different words nowadays, and in this case it's a certain. A certain, for example, in our case, he, which we have seen before, means this one is the unaccented one, because as we have seen, when it's accented, it means fire. But this one is the most certainly unaccented, and so the one for day. Technically also sun, but more often than not day in modern Japanese. And so a certain day, totsuzen, I think unaccented, but it will check, of course. It means sudden, technically, because technically it's a noun, of course, our usual Chinese compound, but more often than not used as an adverb. And so suddenly, let's check its accent. Yes, unaccented, 突然 means abrupt, sudden, unexpected, but more often than not as an adverb, like in our case. And so suddenly. However, a certain thing, suddenly, hitobito. Hitobito is comes from hito. We've seen it before. Is the word for person. The most common word for the fundamental word for person, unaccented. And in this case, we simply double it. The bito after it is simply hito repeated, and it gets the duck 10, the consonant gets voiced, because it's technically a compound. And the second element is of strictly Japanese origin. Hitobito, so, by the way, accented on the to, on the first to, hitobito. Hitobito means literally person, and so people. And so by extension also technically each person, everybody. But the fundamental meaning is people, literally person and person. And so people. Then we have the topic particle wa. Thank you for the comments in chat, R827. Of course, you can also others watching or watching later if you don't have the time to also watch it fully. You can always check the VOD. And tomorrow for me it's evening here. Tomorrow morning usually I add the timestamps. Yes, as I was saying, we add the topic particle wa, written as ha. And so, as for people, however, a certain day, suddenly, as for people, then we have yume, just like in our title. We have also studied its kanji. It means dream. Dreams also plural, because unless you want to specify it like in our example here with the duplication of the word hitobito, or with the pluralizing suffix tachi. Usually a word on its own is more than enough to imply either the singular or the plural. But yes, as I was saying, yume, accented on the last syllable, means dream, dreams, in our case. Then we have the object particle o, written as wo, and also pronounced as such in careful speech and also singing. Then we have miru, the verb to see, accented, should be, but we'll check. Then we have koto, accented on the last syllable, thing as in matter, and yes, miru was accented, by the way. As a reminder, contrast it with mono, which means a thing as in object. Koto is used as a matter, fact, so literally the fact of seeing. It's used as a way to nominalize verbs. And then we have the subject particle ga. And then we have our final verb with quite the conjugation. Well, technically we have two verbs and then the conjugation of the second one. First we have dekinaku from dekiru, which means to be able to do. Also the potential form of suru, since it has that meaning, and in this case straight up replaces the verb instead of making the potential form of the verb suru like other verbs. Then it's a ru verb, it's an verb, so we can drop the ru. In this case, to add nai, and so the adjective, which means to not be, in the sense of to not exist, without, and is used as the negative form of verbs in plain speech. So not be able to do, can't do. And then, since nai is an adjective, we can drop the i and add ku to make the form which is used for several conjugations, the adverb. But in this case, it's required by the following verb, which is natte shimaimashita in this case, but it comes from naru, which means to become. And to turn into. And so requires, we have seen it before with nouns, in which case it required the particle ni, to, which is why I mentioned the turn into. But with adjectives, you have to use the adverbial form of the adjectives, and so the one with ku. We could say that the translation, while literally it is to become, to turn into, it then becomes something more like to result in, to turn out, to end up, like this, one of the further translations of the verb naru. But we'll see the full translation when we arrive at that. First, let's further conjugate naru to get our final form. First, we have to turn it into its te form. Naru is a U verb, codam verb, so we have to follow the rules. Being in Ru means that it becomes a double consonant te, natte. Naru accented, so natte. We have to make the te form in this case to add the verb, in this case auxiliary, shimau. Shimau. We have seen that its fundamental meaning is to finish, and has that meaning also in as an auxiliary verb, to finish, to do completely. Shimau, so unaccented. Then it's a U verb, codam verb, so we can turn the U into I to make the continuative form, which in this case it's required to add mashta. Mashta, as we have seen before, is the technically an auxiliary verb, which is the polite form of the verb in the past. Mas, masu, and so then usually pronounced as mas because of the above rule I mentioned before. Mas is the present, also used as the future, but fundamentally the present. Mashta, the past. In the affirmative, then there are different forms for the negative. And so we can finally translate. However, a certain day, suddenly, as for people, literally person and person, they ended up becoming incapable of seeing dreams. And so we have the start of our accident, our incident that our jiken in Japanese, we've seen before in the first part. Accented, by the way, jiken. And so the incident is that people stopped being able to see dreams. Then we have the second part. Yume no izumi de daiyo ga mizu abi o shite asonde ita no desu. We have yume again, dream, dreams. No, the subject, the possessive particle of dreams, and then izumi, spring, fountain. And so yes, just like in the title, yume no izumi, izumi, by the way, unaccented, means fountain of dreams, the titular fountain of dreams in Japanese, and a stage in Smash Bros, by the way. Then we have the particle de, which means at, in, the location. With most verbs, we have de to mark the location, while with those of existence, like the ones I mentioned, aru and iru, we use ni instead. But here we have that because there's a different verb, as we'll see. Then we have de, daio. De is the name of the character, as it's the same in English. Then we have daio, which is his title. It's, as we see in Japanese, while we have also the more generic san, mister, and other ones, we can also have a name of a person followed by their title. In our case, daio, which literally means great king. Great king, de. And by the way, between quotes, because in this case, more to focus on it, to put the focus on it, because of course it's technically the introduction of this character in this game, in our story. Then we have the subject particle ga. Then we have mizuabi, which is technically a compound between mizu, the word for water, unaccented, we've seen it before, and then we have abi, which comes from the verb abiru, abiru, which is unaccented, okay, and means to bathe in, also to take a shower, and other extended meanings coming from it, but the fundamental meaning is to take, to bathe in, and also to take a shower. It's a ru verb, ichidan verb, so we can drop the ru to make the continuative form, in our case to make the corresponding noun. So bathing. And so then we get our compound, literally bathing in water, technically in cold water, or at least not hot water, because mizu is the one used for water of that temperature, and more importantly, there's another word which is specifically for hot water, which is yu. But yes, in general, it's mizuabi would mean bathing, showering, and also, of course, by extension, swimming, as we can see in the image with King Dede with his swimming with a ring even. Then we add the object particle o, and then we have the verb ste, from suru, unaccented, to do, mentioned before because of the kiru, which is its potential form, replaces the potential form of suru because it already has that meaning, instead of making it by conjugating it, unlike other verbs. But yes, to do. And so in this case, literally to do swimming. As we have seen in other cases, you could also make, more often than not, the verb by attaching suru directly after the noun, our compound in this case. And yes, we could do that in this case as well, but they decided to keep it as an object, so literally to do swimming. Then we change it into its te form. Suru is irregular. It's one of the completely irregular verbs, so its te form becomes ste. In this case, it could be do the swimming and, but also by. We'll see, depending on the rest of the sentence. Honestly, in this case, maybe the end translation would be better, but we'll see. Then we have another verb in its te form, asonde. This one comes from asobu. We check its accent, but it means to play, as in games, sports, but also by extension, simply to enjoy oneself, and other extended meanings, but we won't cover them for now. So, to play, by extension, to enjoy oneself. We then change it into its te form, being a verb codant verb. We have to change we have to follow the rules, and so it becomes de. It's worth mentioning that most likely it becomes like this because in older forms of Japanese, what are now voiced consonants, like de, like bu, were pronounced with a nasal before it. So, asombu, mbu, nde. And so you can see why in modern Japanese the te form has become n, with now written with an actual n before it, and then de. And by the way, this nde is also the te form of verbs ending in not only those in bu, but also those in mu, and of course also those in nu, because they're even in Japanese nowadays, they are nasal consonants. But yes, as asobu, unaccented, we make the te form asonde. In this case, we make the te form to then add the auxiliary verb ita from iru. Mentioned it before, means to be, as in to exist. But when we make the te form of a verb followed by iru, it's the continuative form, the ing, the continuous form, so present continuous, past continuous, like in our case, as we soon see. So be plus ing form in English simply. It can also mean a state that continues, but yes, as you can see, there's always this continuous element to this, be it either an action that continues, or a state that continues. Then we change it. It's a iru is a ru verb, it's done verb, so we can drop the ru to add ta to make its ta form, and also as a reminder, it's the same for the te form, just that of course in one you add ta and the other you add te. Ta form, which is the past form in plain speech. And so was playing, was having fun by swimming in our case. And last but not least, we have no des. No is a nominalizer for verbs, also adjectives, but can also be seen as another form of fact, as another word for fact, just like koto above. And when we add the copula, and so we have this structure no des, also abbreviated as ndes, we get, it means the explanation, the expectation is that, the reason is that, the fact is that, and there we get the meaning of no similar to koto. The explanation is that, it is that also, simply. And so we finally can have our full translation. At the Fountain of Dreams, well, we should start from the end, the no des. The fact is that, the explanation is that, the great king Dedede was having fun by swimming at the Fountain of Dreams. And so we finally get, I've translated this part. Since we take, yeah, we have more, sorry. We can, well, I'd say we can continue. Maybe we can even finish it fully, but there's another screen after this one, but at least we'll see this one. Starting with shikamo. Yume no izumi no chikara no minamoto starodo mo terere no teshita ni kubararete shimatta you desu. Despite the separation, it's actually one sentence. And so we have seen it all. Let's start with shikamo. as you can see, similar to shikashi, but since in this case it has mo instead, its meaning, mo, which as a reminder usually is the inclusive particle, also even. The meaning of shikamo, also accented on the ka, most likely because of what I mentioned before about shikashi. Shikamo means moreover, furthermore. And so we have moreover. Again, we see Yume Izumi, the Fountain of Dreams. Then we add the possessive particle to it, no, of the Fountain of Dreams. Then we have chikara, strength. We check its accent, but should be on the last syllable. Also, we have seen it, chikara, force, strength, but also capability and ability, so in reference to, of course, copy abilities. And yes, it's accented on the last syllable. Then we add the possessive particle no also to this, and so of the strength of the Fountain of Dreams. And last but not least, we have Minamoto. We'll check the accent, but its meaning is source, specifically of a river, fountainhead, but also by extension simply source in general. Literally, Minamoto, we can see moto, which I mentioned before, which means origin. The mi is most likely from mizu, water, technically called water, but because of what I said, water in general. And then we have this na in the middle, which most think that it's an alternative form found in classical Japanese for of no, and so the possessive particle, and so literally Minamoto means origin of water, and so yes, that's why it's a source of a river, fountainhead, and so by extension source of anything. In our case, the source of the strength of the Fountain of Dreams. And then we get the name of this source of the strength of the Fountain of Dreams. Star Rod, just like Star Rod, just like in English. Of course, we have the long vowel for star. We'll check its accent, but I think we have seen it already before, that it's luckily as expected on the star. And then we have Rotto. Notice in Japanese the doubling of the consonant, unlike, of course, English. Rod. And yes, luckily also accented on the first syllable, and so as expected, just like in English. Then we have the inclusive particle mo, also even. Also the star rod, and all that its specifications before the name. Then we have the name of the character, no, and so the possessive particle of the, and then we have testa. Testa is a compound noun, literally from te, hand, as a reminder, accented, and then sta, unaccented, which means below, down, under, and of course other extended meanings. So literally, under the hand, the hand of someone. And so the meaning of testa, which by the way is accented on the last syllable, unlike sta, which is unaccented, so be careful. Testa means subordinate, underling, henchman, minion. Quite useful to remember underling, as there's the under also in English, just like in Japanese. Then we have the particle ni, to the underlings of the, and then we have the final verb, quite long, and also an additional part after it, but we'll see it soon enough. Kubararete shimatta yo desu. First and foremost, the verb itself, it's kubaru. You check its accent, but it means to distribute, to hand out, to deliver, technically also to deliver, as in to distribute, to hand out. By extension, also to allocate, to place staff, soldiers, and so on. The fundamental meaning is to distribute. And it's accented, okay, so kubaru. Kubaru. Then, being a U verb, codan verb, we can change the U into A, and then add re, ru. In our case, we see only the re because of further conjugation, to make the passive form of the verb. Get distributed to the underlings of the. Then we change it into its te form, being passive forms are ru verbs, ichidan verbs, and so we can simply drop the ru and add te to make the te form, which is required in this case again to add shimau, the auxiliary verb, to finish, to do completely, to end up. Then we change that in its ta form, being a u verb, codan verb. We have to follow the rules. Ending in u, it means that it becomes a double consonant ta. As a reminder, that's because in classical Japanese, u verbs, those literally ending in u, unlike ku and other ones, su, those in u were actually in hu, because they originally were in pu and then it further evolved. And so that p in its original form is the reason why, of course, it was easier to pronounce it as the doubling of the following consonant. We make the ta form to make the past form of the verb. Ended up being distributed. Then we had yo, which means form, style, as we have seen also by extension, like, similar to, but with verbs, it becomes a way to do something, method of doing something, better way. As we see, there's another way to make a method of doing something. But also, it appears, it looks. So, it looks like, we get again the like translation. Technically, everything before the yo, since yo is a noun, despite its uses, everything before it is a relative clause, but and then, of course, being a noun, we add the copula des. Des is the copula in the polite speech. Da is the one in plain speech. Of course, these one are the affirmative present ones. We'll see the other ones when the time comes. And so we finally have our translation. We can translate. Moreover, also even here is better, even the star rod in English with then open with a comma, the source of the strength of the fountain of dreams, it looks like it ended up being distributed to Dedede's underlings, to the underlings of Dedede, which are the bosses of each level. Level, as a reminder, is the word for word in Kirby games. So we can have seen these. And so I'd say we can at this point see the final part, so that we can end the story of the game, the story intro. Kabi wa minna no tanoshii o hiru ne time o torimodosu tame bouken no tabi ni deta no deshita. And then, of course, the suspension points, the suspension dots. Okay. First and foremost, we have Kirby. Then the topic particle, wa. As for Kirby, then we have minna. Minna means everyone, everybody, all. Technically, by extension, also everything, all, but fundamental meaning is everyone. it can also be found as mina, without the n in the middle, the double n. With the double n, it becomes less formal and more emphatic, and this is why we have this form here. But both have the same meaning and are also accented on the last syllable, so on the na. Then we have the possessive particle no, of everybody, everyone. Then we have an adjective, tanoshii, fun, enjoyable, pleasant, should be accented. Yes, it's accented. We have seen it at least once before. Being an adjective, I adjective means that we can leave it as is and then immediately put the noun which it modifies. In our case, ohiru ne, time. First we have ohiru ne. O is the honorific prefix. But then we have hirune, which is a compound noun between hiru, which should be, okay, yes, accented on the last syllable, and means noon, midday. And so, by extension, daytime. Fundamental meaning, though, is noon, midday. And then we had ne, which comes from the verb neru, which means to sleep, as in to sleep lying down, to go to bed, to lie in bed, and also simply to lie down, and other extended meanings. But yes, it's to lie in bed, to lie down, and so to sleep by extension. Then it's a ru verb, it's an verb, so we can drop the ru to make the continuative form, and so the corresponding noun, sleeping. And so literally it's sleeping during the day, during daytime, and so a nap, an afternoon nap, a siesta. And then here they decided to also add time, from English time. Should be accented where on ta as expected, but we'll check. Yes, accented on ta. And so literally time for sleeping during the day. The sleeping during the day time. Then we have the object particle o. Then we have a verb, a compound verb, torimodosu. It comes from toru, which means to take. We'll check its accent. Okay, accented, toru. To take, so technically also to pick up, to grab, to catch, other extended meanings, including to get, to obtain. But yes, the fundamental meaning is to take. Then we make it's a U verb, Godan verb, so we can change the U into I to make the continuative form, in this case required to make the compound verb. Then we add modosu. We have seen it funny enough in this very game because it's written on the doors that lead to the previous word, because modosu means to return. In this case, we have seen modoru in game, which means to return, as in to go back. In this case, it's to return in the sense to give back, because this is the transitive verb, unlike the one we've seen in game, which is the intransitive form. And so this compound, torimodosu, luckily also accented, just like both verbs on their own. Literally means to take and return, and so to take back. Then we have tame, which technically is a noun, which would mean on its own good, as in advantage, benefit. And so, by extension, sake, purpose, objective, aim. And so is used to make as a final conjunction to take back, to, of course, in the sense of the purpose of getting back, of taking back, of taking back. As you see, more often than you then usually add the particle ni, which also has, we have seen the meaning to, but in this case to would be better maybe for in English. Also a final meaning to the particle itself, but it can also be dropped, ignored. So just by, like here, tame on its own. By the way, tame is accented on the last syllable. And then we have boken. Boken means adventure. It's a Chinese compound. As we'll see, it the kanji that of which it's composed mean respectively risk and steep, and so steep also dangerous. So while the usual meaning we'll see is adventure, technically it's a venture, a risky venture, and so also used as such. But of course, in the context of games, usually it's adventure. And by the way, it's unaccented, spoken. Then we add the possessive particle no of adventure. Then we have tabi, which in this case, even though of course it's written in hiragana here, usually it would be written in kanji. There's technically a different tabi, but in this case, between it being used on its own, not as a suffix, and also because of the context, this one is definitely the one from, which means travel, trip, journey. It's accented on the last syllable, yes. So a journey of adventure. Then we have the particle ni, to, required by the following verb, which is deta, from deru, accented, which means to exit, to leave, and so in our case, the extended meaning to leave on a journey, to depart. Then, last but not least, we have no desta. Again, the form no des, but in this case, surprisingly enough, because usually this isn't the case, we have again no the nominalizer, and so also fact, the explanation with the copula, and so the explanation is that the fact is that, and then we have but in this case, instead of des, the polite affirmative copula in the present, we have de sta. As you might guess, since we have sta, just like mashta, this is the form of the affirmative past of the copula in the present, and so was. And so we can finally translate. As for Kirby, the fact was that he, implied, departed for, literally more like to, a journey of adventure, to, literally for the sake of taking back the fun sleeping during the day time of everyone. And there you have it. This is the conclusion of, as you can see, then I didn't get anything else, because after that Kirby leaves this screen and we get back to the title screen. And so we have finally finished the story intro. We'll take a break, and after that, as usual, around 5 minutes, and after that we'll finally start playing the game itself. Okay, see you in around 5 minutes. And we are back. And so now we can finally start the game itself. We have the intro as usual, we skip it. We have then the file selector. And we actually have a percentage high enough to get a new title, and so we have that to check. Title, which is Hayate no Kariゅうど. First we have Hayate, which literally would mean quick hand. As you can see, Haya, we have studied even the kanji, and Te also studied the kanji, but on its own is actually used as the reading of a Chinese compound, as the Japanese reading of a Chinese compound, even though apparently also the Chinese reading is used, which based on its kanji means, also based on the kanji usually used, means swift wind, and most likely it's used because of that meaning, literally quick hand, swift hand, and so it becomes by extension swift wind. Then we have the possessive particle no, so of a swift wind, strong wind, gale. And last but not least, we have Kariゅうど, a Chinese compound, well, sorry, technically it's actually a strictly Japanese compound, even though it doesn't look like it, but it's because of the contraction it has, because literally, as can also be seen by its kanji, it comes from kari, which comes which means hunting, hunt, and of course actually comes from a verb, karu, which is unaccented, which means to hunt animals, and also by extension for other extended meanings, but fundamental meaning is to hunt. We change it's a U verb, codan verb, so we can change the U into I to make the continuative form, and so the corresponding noun, kari, which unfortunately is accented on the first syllable. Unfortunately, because that's usually not the case for nouns derived from verbs in that way, as they're usually accented on the last syllable or unaccented, depending on the verb being accented or not. But in this case, it became a word of its own and also got this accent. specific accent, carry, except on the first syllable. But yes, the meaning is still hunting, hunt. And then we had hito. We have seen it before in this very lesson. It's the most common word for person. And then there were all the changes that led to this present reading. Carry, luckily, is the same. It's hito that changed it. Most likely, first and foremost, we have this an alternative form, fu-to. We'll see it also in other kanji. But unfortunately, in this case, there's also this change of do at the end, the additional duck 10. Not sure why. Because honestly, it's weird. It's irregular. And also isn't seen in other kanji that have this hito at the end as the second part of a compound noun from hito, futo. Such changes can be seen in some words, as we have seen also for fire, he, usually in compounds ho, like ho no, literally ear of fire, flame, so it's the meaning. But yes, we change hito into futo, here fudo, unfortunately. And then we would have kari udo, written as hu. And then there's a further change, contraction. Ri, hu becomes ryu, ryu, and also with the long vowel, ryu. And so that's why we get karyudo as the final form. Luckily, accented on the first syllable, so just like kari. But yes, despite the complex origin, it literally simply means people that hunts, and so hunter. So literally in Japanese this title is Hunter of the swift wind, strong wind, gale. And that's why in English it has been localized as Swift Hunter. So simply they changed they dropped the wind part and kept simply Swift, and then of course Hunter. Okay, with that we can finally start the game. Our save file. Start level 4. I'll show the animation since we got to see it at the end of the last episode. And we can finally actually start level 4 with stage 1. Keep on hearing the file we've already got before. I'll just show it its description if you want to pause and review it. Yeah, we keep the music also heard in the overworld here. A classic Kirby tune. there are a lot of enemies, and so of course also a lot of slowdown. As we have seen again, when you absorb, inhale both a star with a copy ability and an enemy which has a copy ability, the star's ability comes first, so we got fire back. Okay, nice that we get it. Oh, okay, we want definitely this U.F.O. First and foremost, because of course we have to check its description. We haven't seen this ability before. As we can see here, in Japanese called U.F.O. So, not U.F.O, but U.F.O. We check its accent as usual. Hopefully it's the same as well, in this case most likely it's if we can find it, because technically when written as U.F.O, it would be read as such also in English, in Japanese U.F.O. My guess would be actually accented on the U. I can check a physical dictionary, even though I doubt it will be there, but we'll try. Let's see if it's here. Let's see, U. With a long vowel. Okay, actually I found it. Okay, here it shows two readings. Just like I mentioned, U.F.O, accented on the U. U.F.O. And actually that's our accent for this specific form, because the other one, the other reading that is given is U.F.O. So U.F.O when reading the letters separately, and that one is accented on the final O, U.F.O. But with this form here, it's U.F.O, accented on the first syllable. Okay, we can start checking the description. ボタンを押しっぱなしにすることで4段階の攻撃が使えるぞ。First and foremost, we have botan, unaccented. We have seen it several times before. Unaccented, unlike other words from English, because technically it's actually not from English, even though it's a similar button, because it comes from Portuguese, botão. But yes, it means button. Then we have the object particle O. Then we have oshipanashi. First and foremost, we have oshi, which means it comes from osu. We have seen it, of course, a lot before, especially in combination with botan, because it means to push, so also to push a button. is an accented also. Here we change it into it's a U verb got an verb, so we can change the U into I to make the continuative form. In this case, required by the following part. Technically required because it would be a compound verb that panashi, apart from the irregular small tsu, the doubling of the following consonant, the verb would be hanashi. Well, the noun derived from a verb, which is hanasu. We check its accent. Be careful because there are actually other hanasu, but in this case, also according to the kanji, when written as such here, we can guess it from the context, and also because it's this peculiar form comes from the hanasu, accented, which means to release, to let go, to free, to set free. Fundamental meaning to release, and also of course those extended ones. Being a U verb got an verb, we can make change the U into I to make the continuative form. In this case, to make the corresponding noun release, as in the noun. But in this peculiar form of the verb, when we add when we add panashi after the mass stem of a verb, the continuative form, it means the leaving, on, open, unfinished, and so on. Leaving as is. Most likely, again, because of the original meaning, to release, to let go, and so leave then, by extension, as is. And also, doing continuously, constantly, keep doing, again by extension because of that leaving. So in our case, if you keep on pressing the button, then we add the particle ni, in this case required by the following verb, which is suru. We have seen it before. Suru usually means to do, but when used with the particle ni before it, and usually a noun, but like in our case, even though it's a peculiar noun technically, it gets the meaning. The meaning becomes to decide on, to choose. Better to remember it as to decide on, and that on is the ni which is required for this form. But also it should be, let's see if I can also find it here. But there are also other ways to use Nisuru. Would be kind of to make so that, but usually the fundamental form with nouns it's to decide on, to choose. Then we have the noun koto. Again, thing as in matter, fact, and so the nominalizer for verbs. And then we have the particle de, with the means by. Also by literally the fact of deciding on making so that you keep pressed the button. Then we have yon dankai, we have the number 4, most likely here read as yon, despite the following word could technically be considered as a counter, but even just a noun. Dankai, which is unaccented, okay, which means stage, as in step, phase, and so also by extension, level, rank, grade, gradation, order. Funny enough, as we'll eventually see, but it's worth mentioning, this Chinese compound is dankai. If you change the order of its kanji, you get kaidan, which means stairs, as in stairway, a staircase, also accented. And so yes, the fundamental meaning of dankai is step, in our case better as stages. And then we have 4, and so 4 steps, 4 stages. I mentioned it most likely being read here as yon. That's because, as we'll eventually see, despite being dankai a Chinese compound, and even if it were an actual Chinese counter, usually you still use the strictly Japanese pronunciation yon, because the Chinese pronunciation of the number 4 is shi, which unfortunately enough is also the pronunciation, the Chinese pronunciation of the word for death. And so there's the superstition in East Asia, all the countries influenced by Chinese, both culture and also language, of the number 4 being associated to death. And so, when it comes to the language itself, it's preferred, in our case in Japanese, not using the Chinese pronunciation, and instead use the strictly Japanese one, even though it would technically be required. And so Yon Dankai, 4 steps as in stages. Then we have the possessive particle no, of, better in English as we see, in, but that's simply because of how English works, and because of the translation, but technically, literally off. And then we have Kogeki, attack. We've seen it mentioned before also because Geki is the Chinese reading of kanji we have studied. Then we have the subject particle ga. And last but not least, well, of course we have also the final sentence particle, but we'll see it in a second. The main verb, skairu, from skau, to use. Then it's a u verb, Godan verb, so we can change the u into e and add ru to make the potential form. And so can use, also just like the original verb, since it's unaccented, the potential form is also unaccented. Skairu. Last but not least, we add zo, a final sentence particle, which adds force or indicates command. It's a male term or language, technically. And so we can finally translate. By using by deciding on keeping to keep on pressing the button, an attack in 4 stages, literally of 4 stages, 4 steps, can be used. We have didn't mention it, but we have the subject particle for attack because it's usually required by the potential form. Sometimes you see it also the noun keeping the object particle, but this is the rule technically, because the translation would be, in our case, an attack can be used. And so yes, we have 4 stages of this attack, depending on how long you keep the button pressed. And let's see the rest. Hoka no basho e motte iku koto wa dekinai kara kyotsuke yo. First we have hoka. We've seen it before. It's a noun, which means another place, but when used with the particle no, it becomes, it technically still is a noun, but in practice becomes an adjective, which means another of whatever is after the possessive particle. In our case, basho, another place, location, unaccented by the way, basho. Then we have the particle e, written as he, which means to, towards, direction. Technically, as we have seen, also the particle ni means to, towards, but e usually is focused on the direction, while ni on the destination. Then we have the verb motte, from motsu, to hold, in one sense, to take, to carry, fundamental meaning to hold, and so by extension, in one sense, and so by extension also to possess. Should be accented, we'll check, yes. We change it into its form, being a U-verb, cotton verb, we have to follow the rules, and so being itsu becomes small tsu, so double consonant, te, motte, motte, of course, actually, because in the accent, because it stays on the mo. We make the te form, in this case, to add iku, which means literally to go, unaccented, by the way. But in this case, it's used to say the direction in which one does the action of the main verb, becomes an auxiliary verb, iku. So, to take and go, literally, to go by taking, to another place, another location. Then we have, of course, again, koto, fact, nominalizer of verbs. Then the topic particle wa. And so literally, as for the fact of taking away, taking and going to another place, another spot, location, another spot. Then we have the kinai, from the kiru, be able to do, we've seen it. It's a ru verb, it's done verb, so we can drop the ru to add nai, and so make the negative form of the verb. Can't not be able to do. Technically, in this case, it's as we have seen, it's the whole verb plus koto ga the kiru construction, but in this case we replace ga with the topic particle wa. Then we add the kara. As a particle, we have seen it with the meaning particle, and so with nouns, we have seen it with the meaning from, both as in a place or time. But also, when used with verbs in their dictionary forms, the kiru in the positive in the affirmative and the kinai in the negative, the negation, it becomes because, since one of the ways to make to express cause then we have ki, which means spirit. In this case, there are also other ki, like the one for tree. We've seen it, we've studied the kanji. But this one, and that one is accented. This one is most likely the unaccented one. And so with another kanji, which means we can tell, even though there isn't the kanji because of the context and actually of the peculiar structure we used with it. We'll see it in a second. Ki, unaccented, means spirit, mind, heart, nature, disposition, and so on. It's the concept of ki in martial arts, Japanese martial arts, chi in Chinese ones, because of the evolution of the Chinese language. Then we had the object particle o, and then the verb tsukeru. In our case, again, there are technically more than one tsukeru verbs with the reading tsukeru, but in this one, with this peculiar construction kyo tsukeru, tsukeru is the one which means to attach, to join, to connect, to add. And so, literally, it would be to add mind, as in to mind attention. To pay attention becomes so. To be careful, to take care. Being tsukeru, a ru verb, Ichidan verb, we can drop the ru to add then yo, u, read as long yo, which is the volitional form with its most common meaning, which is the one used here, let's. And so we can finally translate. As for taking by going away it implied, so the ability to another place, location, because it can't be done, it bringing it to taking it to another location. Let's be careful. Okay, so we got to see the description of U.F.O. And so yes, it's quite a rare ability, as we'll see, because it's actually quite a strong one. As you can see, press 1, you get this beam. Keep it a little, you shoot that star. Keep it more, you shoot that much bigger star. Ah yes, actually, I got the in-between that I was missing, the laser beam. So, this beam attached to Kirby, slightly more the laser beam going forward. we keep it long, the star, single star, and if we keep it at max, we get the bigger star. So yes, it's quite a rare ability because it's also quite a strong one. So they don't want you to completely break the game by using it. Technically, that enemy has a new ability, but we'll ignore it for now. Definitely not giving up U.F.O just because of that, sorry. Sleep we've already seen. Okay, as you can see, there's something there in this block. Okay, no, I was right. And I also remember correctly. It looked weird, but then it seemed to recall something. Yeah, we get a button. And so we have to press it to complete the stage instead of just finishing it. And we unlock that minigame. Yeah, as you can see, you can tell it's a block that stays in the middle of those ones which follow the pattern, is against the pattern, and also you can see the different graphic because of it being in the middle. So that's your clue. Yeah, we've also not seen this ability, but again, these are way more common, so we'll see them at a later time. And here is actually the end of the stage. Well, I'll get back U.F.O, enter the stage, the end of the stage. We play the minigame. Fortunately failed. We got 4. So 800 points. And as you can see on the bottom left, we are back to normal, and so not having an ability. So you can see we have the description about copy ability, about copying in the pause menu. And yes, we lost U.F.O. You can't bring it to other stages, only in the one you have found it in. Okay, since we don't have much time, we'll tackle stage 2 next time. We'll just play the minigame. Crane Fever, already seen the description, luckily. And as usual, we want to get the biggest doll immediately. Biggest Kirby doll. If possible, because... well, I've already shown it what happens. Hopefully, I can make it happen again. Yes, perfect. Because if you get it with the first credit, then you get a second one drops, and you can get that as well. Okay. Well, hopefully it's good enough. Okay, perfect, just like at first. So we got 2 big Kirby dolls, and so two ups, and so 4 lives. Okay, and with that, we can finish for now. Next time, we tackle stage 2, continue level 4. Of course, as usual, first close like this, so you can check the... Okay, perfect. It has saved. We don't have a percentage high enough to get another title for now. And so we'll continue level 4 by starting with stage 2. We might play the minigame again, since it's ready there. We haven't seen more kanji. We have finally finished the introduction, and so we'll immediately start playing again. And that's why I mentioned also before that luckily later stages, later words, later levels in Kirby games should be quicker, because we'll have less writings. And so yes, next time we'll do that. So, luckily it had saved, so we are fine. And so next time we'll do that. Should be on Monday as usual. But of course, we also have our Sunday stream, mostly just for fun. And we'll play if everything goes well. This time, there shouldn't be issues to accidents because of time zones and so on. We should play let's see if I can find it here around. Yes, the open network test of Sonic Racing Crosswords. Since luckily it should be those days, and yes, it isn't at a specific time, so we should be able to play it. Okay, so see you on Sunday for that. See you on Monday for more Let's Learn with Kirby's Adventure. Okay. See you next time.